Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm here with Jhariah Clare today, artist born and raised in the Bronx, New York artist from Pratt. How you doing, Jhariah?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm just finished up my first year here at Pratt, and I'm just tired, working on a million things at once, and just trying to get it all done, I guess.
I feel that. And what are you studying at Pratt? Does it have something to do with your music?
No, actually, I'm studying 2D animation right now. So I'm very interested in like the visual side of things and like working
Right.
that into my music, definitely. So all the visual stuff, illustrations, animations is all me. So that's what I'm majoring in right now.
That's awesome. And how do you see the crossover of animation and music and kind of the visual experiences that you work on? I know that you do some of your album covers yourself. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about that process? I really like some of your album artwork. I actually create album artwork myself. So
Oh, it's awesome.
from one album artwork maker to another, I really like some of your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean that's definitely I do all of the album artwork, covers and promotional stuff myself. And just I guess that's sort of my original skill. I've been doing visual art a lot longer than music. So I think as I got deeper into writing music and releasing it, it just felt natural to work in that visual process. So there was a good like 3 months of like just strictly visual stuff, just animating, creating, building like a visual experience. Because I think all of my favorite artists on my favorite albums have had like these big, like experiences around them where it's more than just the music. It's about like, what you're seeing and how you're feeling. And I think the visuals are like a really, really big part of that.
Yeah, and what you're describing to me really encompasses the mindset of a DIY artist. You're creating the visuals yourself, the album artwork. What other aspects of the entire process do you like to do yourself?
Well, I mean, as far as everything I have out right now, it's pretty much all me. I mean, I did all of the production and arrangement on the Great Tale of How I Ruined It All, my first album. Recording, production, arrangement, writing. I worked with a couple of friends on a handful of songs, and wherever I can, I try to get my friends on board, whether it's like a little vocal sample here or there. One of the songs had a feature, but definitely like moving forward, I'm really enjoying working with some of the people that I have around me and just trying to make better stuff. Because as much as I love working on stuff DIY and definitely want to continue that, it's really awesome getting other people involved and collaborating like that.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the album. We'll return to DIY aspects of your career in a second, and kind of how that scene is emerging in New York City now. But I want to talk about your album for a second. It's a very bold title, The Great Tale of How I Ruined It All. What did you ruin?
What did I ruin? Well, I guess I didn't ruin anything. It's a concept album basically, and there's a whole lot to it. Basically, to summarize, it's about a kid. He wakes up one day, and basically the city he lives in is completely different. It's been taken over by people that essentially want to take away the individuality of people to sort of unify them into one sort of, I guess, kind of a hive mind. Just the idea, I guess, is that they are bringing peace to people by taking away anything that separates them. And the protagonist of the album, which doesn't really have a name, the entire album is from their point of view and following that character. And he's basically just kind of spirals, going into like a state of like confusion and anger and working through all of these feelings of like everything around me is different now. And, nobody really seems to care or be able to do anything about it. And in the process of trying to restore things to how they were, I think the idea is that he doesn't process it very well and deals with it very angrily, and actually ends up making things worse. And in the end, like on the final song, which is the self-titled Great Tale of How I Ruined It All, he sort of burns down the city, and that's like the end of that story.
That is a very interesting concept. I was not expecting the full background for that, but it's incredible that you thought it out like that. And does that have something to do with your influence from musical theater? I guess to think it out from beginning to end like that, do you think about music when you're making it as almost like a movie that you're seeing in your head, where there's a starting and there's an ending to it, and there's usually an overarching plot to the albums that you create?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before the album was even written, there was a plot. You know, there were characters, there were points I wanted to touch on, feelings, and it was essentially a book, really. And I wrote out a lot of it before I ended up creating it, adapting it into the form of an album, because, I love concept albums, and I love, theater, like you said, and seeing like a musical, you have like, the big opening and going through all of the climax and resolution and all those big moments, big like theatrical moments, I think like really like make things like that special. So for sure, I love stuff like that, like in my own work too.
That's so interesting that you create characters even before you start recording the music. Do you think that has something to do with your love of animation, that you kind of create these characters and then make the music based off of the feelings of these characters?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd never really thought of it exactly like that, but I think you're right. Because, going into music, I've been a visual artist. I've like drawn and loved animation since like as long as I've been able to talk, really. Yeah. So I think when I started music, I think that was like the lens I was going into it with. I didn't grow up playing or like enjoying music really, and I didn't come into music from a standpoint of like a music listener really. I just loved playing music.
Yeah, I think visuals and music have a lot of crossover that we as humans really don't even understand right now, and I think that field is slowly starting to emerge a little bit more. But I know some bigger artists like Kanye West. I mean, I don't know how much truth is placed behind this, but he claims like he sees the visuals of the music he creates. He hears music and he sees the color for it. So I think it's very interesting that you create characters and you see this plot developing in your mind. And I think in the coming years, we're going to see more of a crossover between visuals and music, and have a better understanding of how that thinking process works. So it's a very, very cool topic. I want to jump off that, and I want to talk a little bit more about the DIY scene in New York City. Can you explain to me kind of that scene? I'm not a New York City resident myself, so what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the DIY scene in New York is pretty. There's so many words I use to describe it. It's very colorful, very diverse, and it's just really, it's so much bigger than somebody could ever expect. People here just love, having that DIY attitude. I think especially, in a place like this where there's so many people, I think resources can be spread a little thin for a lot of people trying to get started. So you kind of work with what you have, really. Like all of my stuff has been made in my bedroom, and that's not, it's becoming less and less like, a strange thing for somebody to do. Like I, produced my album, I recorded all of my stuff in my house, because that's just what people have to work with. And I think like more and more resources are becoming available to people. You can get software and you can get like cheap equipment that does its job fine. And I know like I meet a dozen people like every few weeks that just like pretty much does everything on their own because they can, really. And I think that's like a really great thing about being in New York, or really any city, where people connect with each other over stuff that they're doing like on their own.
Right. And tell me a little bit about the Bronx Beer Hall. I know you performed there, and I know you also grew up in the Bronx. Was that a place that you went to when you were a kid, and you kind of you knew about it, and now that you're older, you've started playing there?
The Bronx Beer Hall, it wasn't somewhere I was familiar with. I did grow up in the Bronx, like in the South Bronx. Bronx Beer Hall is a little further up, so it wasn't somewhere I was familiar with, but I think going playing there, that was actually my first real show I played for this album, and it was a very significant moment for me, I think. Just being able to bring all of the songs to life like that and see them play out on the stage. I had my band with me, and it was just a really really special moment being able to play my first show like in my hometown, I guess.
Absolutely. And is do you think you're still learning the how to perform on stage and what the crowd is looking for? And because you're kind of a new artist performing on stage, can you tell me a little bit about what you're starting to figure out of how to appeal to a crowd?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, performing live is definitely like super new to me. When I first started making this album, it took like 2 years or so. At the beginning of the process, I never even considered performing live like at all. So all the music was written from the standpoint of like this is like a sit down and listen kind of thing. And the
Right.
closer I got to finishing, the more I realized like I want to perform this. I want to put this in front of people and play on stage like all of my favorite artists. So I had to sort of adapt it, the way that you adapt like a book into a movie. I had to work the songs into something that could happen live. I had to
Mm.
rehearse a lot. I'd never really performed like that. So I had to like build this just the stamina, to be able to sing for that amount of time and to work on my breathing techniques. I basically had to relearn how to sing and how to perform, like all the people I love seeing perform. So
Wow.
that's
It's
something
really it's
I've been
really like
growing into.
yeah, it's really like you have to relearn a lot of those things that it's so much different than making music. Like you talked about the breathing techniques that go into it. So it's like you master your craft. I mean, you're never done getting better as an artist, but it's like you have to learn an entirely new concept to get good at, really.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think like, learning all of those techniques again really has been helping me working on, future material, being able to think of it from a live standpoint and being able to my voice has grown so much just from performing, that I can do so much, much bigger, more ambitious like things with my voice now. And it's really, really exciting, writing music, feeling like I have less boundaries.
And what kind of genre would you say your music best fits into? I listen to it, and it sounds unique from a lot of things that I've listened to. I hear some maybe hip hop influences in there, in some regards, and then it has that alternative rock feel. Can you talk a little bit about that and what genre you best think that your music fits into?
Um, I guess I don't know. It's very, very cliche, but I don't really think music fits into any one specific genre. But I can definitely, pin down like the influences there. I'm really into rock music in general, alternative. I love pop music, and like I think pop is definitely the sort of backbone of everything I do. I'm into like so much different stuff. There's influence from like rock and reggae and salsa and like musical theater and like all types of world music. And I think all of that built within sort of a I guess a pop kind of infrastructure, taking a lot of these different things and making them not palatable, but trying to fit them into something that I enjoy listening to, um, and something that I hope other people will enjoy listening to.
I'm glad that you said that because when you make music, are you making it for yourself, for something that you would enjoy